It is very useful to constantly observe, note, and consider. That was a very important way that he saw everything. So Da Vinci, perhaps the greatest mind that's ever lived, what allowed him to be so great, so incredibly prolific in his ideas and the things he explored? I would argue journaling was the thing that separated Leonardo da Vinci from all of his peers. While everyone journaled, Leonardo da Vinci journaled with a certain deepness of curiosity and just took notes in such meticulous detail about everything. It was said that when they went to his final residence, they found, in quote, an infinite amount of pages that he had stored there. Here are a few things that I think we can learn from his journaling practice and take to our own lives. First thing I want to talk about is follow any inkling of curiosity. From a young age, he would go out into nature with his dad's papers and just record things that were interesting to him. Anything that he would find that would be interesting, he would do studies of from a very young age. He would draw them. He would see how the light would hit certain areas. He would write down questions for himself, write down interesting to-do lists. From a very young age, he showed this massive amount of curiosity that we can see within his journals. It is very useful to constantly observe, note, and consider. That's what journaling is. Observing, noting, and then considering what are the ramifications, what are the meanings, and how much further can we explore and play around with this idea. Next thing we're going to talk about is he wasn't limited by theme. If you looked in a single page of his journals, you would see to-do list, very simple to-do list many times, and then matched with very complex things in the same to-do list. It would be like, get this woman chocolate for today, and then it would say, build a flying machine and test it in the ocean. He would have both of these things on the same to-do list. There was on a single page, you could see a flying machine, you could see practices of anatomy, you could see mathematics and geometry, you can see philosophy. This man wasn't limited by any theme. So within our own journals, we can not try to limit ourselves too much, like, oh, this is the kind of journal I do, and I don't do other practices, or I just write about my day, or I only habit track and I only use my bullet journal, or I only use this specific method. Don't limit yourself by theme. Write whatever you want within the pages. It doesn't just need to be your day. It doesn't just need to be philosophical musings. Anything you want, write in the pages. So, not limited by theme. The next thing that was very apparent was an outward curiosity. Although it is good sometimes to journal about your feelings and your current state of the day, it's important not to get too lost in that. We can see from his writings that he would constantly be looking outwards. It wasn't just self-reflections and how do I feel and what's my emotional state. It was just curiosity about the world, looking outwards. And I think oftentimes, while it's important to understand yourself, everything that feels bad about life and that doesn't feel like joy in the moment is because we're too inwardly focused. Oftentimes, the cure to any kind of anxiety, any kind of depression, is externalizing your awareness. He did this through his journaling. So I think all of us could probably use some more outward curiosity within our journaling and look at this amazing world that we have to explore. Ask yourself more questions. Next thing, always carry a notebook. Wherever Da Vinci went, he always carried a notebook or papers that he would later bind into a notebook with him. Always, his entire life, and he would bring his entire collection with him as he would move from place to place as well. Wherever he went, he needed paper to observe, note, and consider. So that's something else we can learn. Always carry a notebook with you. Ask better questions. So instead of the small questions that sometimes we'll ask of our own life and of ourselves, he would ask things like, Find the master of hydraulics and get him to tell you how to repair a lock. Ask about the measurements of the sun. Again, just showing his extreme curiosity for everything, but his questions were super large often. In fact, his main question, that the thing that really drove him into everything that he did, was he wanted to find out what the life force behind everything in the world, what drove things and fueled things to be alive. He was sure there was a singular life force that he would be able to find if he just kept looking deep enough. And his whole life was dedicated to finding that source, that one thing that animated things, asking bigger, deeper questions. Really funny thing to look at also is his to-do list. It was so all over the place. I'm gonna read a few of these. It's amazing the type of things that he would put on his to-do list, where instead of just being the casual, okay, eat lunch, and then I sit down and write, he would do things like send chocolates to Lorenzo, see how birds are nourished in their eggs, inflate the lungs of a pig, and observe whether they increase or decrease with width while diminishing in length. Which tendon causes the eye to move so that one eye moves the other? Calculate the measurements of Milan and suburbs. Get the master of arithmetic to show you how to secure a triangle. Get Fazio to show you about proportion. Draw Milan. One thing that also pops up often in his to-do list, in fact, it's omnipresent in almost all of his lists, is asking people in their expertise to teach him. Writing down in your journal, if you want to learn something, who could be a good person to reach out to and teach you about these things, is a beautiful thing that you can add to it. And he didn't discriminate. He would sometimes ask a specific trade worker how they managed to walk across ice in this specific fashion with all their merchandise. Or he would ask professors, he would ask mothers, any single person that would have the answer, and it didn't have to be a high-class citizen. He would ask and get the answers that he so deeply desired and craved. Who do you have a discussion with about that topic? Bonus tip: if we draw a little bit in our notebooks, that's one way we can be a lot more like Da Vinci. I know not everyone's able to sketch, but just anything that you feel like drawing can add to the free flow pattern and feel of your journal, where it encourages any type of creative thought to promote itself within the journal. Anything is allowed. So follow any inkling of curiosity. Don't be limited by theme. Outward curiosity. Always carry a notebook with you. Ask better questions. Ask bigger questions. Ask more random questions. Lastly, draw a little bit in your notebook, and then in that way you can have your journal be a little more like Da Vinci's. Those are a few things that we can learn from him.